Hello, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome on Youth Matters, your host, Sakeena Habib. So, sometimes, we've heard a lot of stories and incidents and a couple of scenarios that take place in real life. I want to take you with me for a while. Imagine that you've actually heard this. Girls from unhappy families often fear marrying someone like their father, like their mother, or having children who suffer as they did. These unhappy families are necessarily poor. They typically contain at least one deeply problematic parent. This difficult parent is stubborn with frighteningly low emotional intelligence. They're extremely selfish and always said they know best. In psychology, such people are defined as having emotional dysregulation. They never consider other feelings. They find fault with everyone and criticize rather than encourage. They exist in a perpetual state of anger and complaints. And when faced with unpleasant situations outside home, they bring that negative energy back and spread it to everyone around them. Their extreme need for control means everyone must obey regardless of whether they're right or wrong. And if anyone agrees, then they feel threatened of their authority. Family members must walk on eggshells to keep these individuals safe. In such households, children constantly live with frayed nerves and suffering. They avoid coming home and dream of escape. When these children grow up, often develop what's called disappointment, emotional isolation. They lack confidence, they fear making mistakes, and they avoid trying new things. And they approach everything with extreme caution because they don't trust anybody else but themselves. They lack security in relationships, they constantly worry and fear others' disapprovals. So sometimes this can also lead to adverse effects, such as becoming toxic as well. You see, overall, what we're doing is that this is what actually shapes your personality as well as you grow up. It could be also because of the childhood trauma that you've experienced throughout the years, the abusive nature of the people you were living with. So, all of this can actually range your behavior when you become an adult. Have you even ever felt these kind of emotions or experienced such kind of things in your personal life or have witnessed people go through? If so, then today's topic is exactly what you're looking for. And on today's topic, we'll be discussing about how toxic relationships change a person's personality from their childhood over the years. So with further ado, I would like to welcome our guest on board, who is, of course, a specialist. And she is a holistic transformational life coach, Sister Uzma Naqvi. And she will be taking us in on some interesting questions to let us know about all these things. So, can I have Sister Uzma Naqvi with us on board?
Assalamu alaikum wa
Hello.
rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you, dear sister?
Walaikum. I'm good, alhamdulillah. How are you, Sister Uzma? Hope you're well, inshallah. Thank you so much
No,
for being coming on the show.
it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Extremely important topic you've picked, and I'm honored to be here, and hopefully I can shed some light. So we're talking about the impact, the experiences that children have, and how that it influences relationships as we move forward. See, toxic childhood experiences literally shape everything about us, not only our mental landscape, but also emotionally and energetically. As children, particularly between the very critical and crucial ages of 0 to 7, they don't operate through logic, right? They don't really have that much autonomy. We operate primarily and purely on emotions at that age. So at that stage, we literally are absorbing everything that is happening around us, through the environment, through the emotions around us, through the way that love is given to us or not, through the way that we feel safe or not, through the connections that are offered or withheld. So all of these things absolutely matter. When love was conditional, when we grow up in an environment where we don't feel like these things are easily given to us, when safety is unpredictable, like you don't know, you have to walk on eggshells. One minute somebody's okay, next minute, everything's all over the place. Or when emotional connection, which is desperately what every child is seeking, is absent, the child's psyche cannot make sense of this rationally. They don't understand. So what they do when all of this chaos is happening around them is they internalize it and they think it must be because of me, right? So they start believing I'm not good enough. There's something the matter with me. There's something wrong with me. I'm too much. That's why they can't handle me. I'm not enough. That's why I don't get the things that I need. I'm not worthy of love unless I earn it. I work really hard for it. These internalizations become the literal blueprint for the rest of our lives, and it totally shapes everything that we do in our adult relationships. Now, a very important piece to understand is how parenting creates our attachment styles, the way that we attach to other people around us. If our early caregivers, our parents, were consistent, they were responsive, they were calm, they were present, they were emotionally available to us, we are likely going to develop a very secure attachment. We don't feel threatened, we don't carry fears, we're not feeling abandoned, we feel safe in love. We trust easy, we regulate our emotions very well. But if the caregivers were inconsistent, if they were neglectful emotionally, or if they were overly critical, or if they were emotionally unstable, then we develop an insecure attachment style. And that can look many different ways. One of the most prominent attachment styles is anxious attachment style. Now, anxious attachment style is where we constantly feel like we are going to be abandoned. People are going to leave us. Nobody's going to stick around. We crave reassurance. We become so overly dependent of our own sense of self through the relationship. So everything that is happening in our lives is only because of the relationship. If that's stable, we're stable. If that's all chaotic, we're chaotic. There is another attachment style, which is avoidant attachment style. And this is where we disconnect from our emotional needs because it's so hard to express emotions at a younger age, or they were completely dismissed or avoided, that we distrust intimacy, any type of connection with anybody. We strive to be overly self-reliant. We avoid getting hurt because we know that when we get close to people, when we seek love, it badly hurts. So we try to avoid it at all cost. And then there's another attachment style, which is disorganized attachment. And this is where we're confused. There's a push and a pull. There's a tug of war in the dynamic of a relationship. We're craving closeness. We desperately want closeness, but at the same time, we really fear love because, it's come from a traumatic past. It's come from abuse. It's come from unpredictability from the caregiver. So we know that when we seek that, it's always been very confusing and very hurtful. And something really important to understand is that we are often magnetically drawn to the opposite to our attachment styles, not because it's healthy, but because it's familiar. It's all our mind and our nervous system knows. It's because of the unmet needs from our childhood. An anxious attachment person will grow to be close to or wanting to be close to. They work so hard for love. They tend to pour out love. They want to get attention. They want to give attention, and they want that in a relationship. That's how they pursue relationships. Whereas the avoidant person is going to learn very early on that showing emotions, being vulnerable, letting down our guards leads to pain. It leads to abandonment. It leads to punishment. So subconsciously, they crave love, but at the same time, they cannot receive it. So it's a really deep, desperate war that goes on the inside because we want to be loved, but we don't know how to create that intimacy or emotional intensity, or how to go about these nurture our emotions basically. But the tragedy of it all is that the moment love gets too close, the deepest fear of theirs are triggered, and they want to run. And it is so heartbreaking to see how many marriages come to an end because of this dynamic.
Yes.
You know,
Because of
it
this
never,
dynamic.
right. There's a pull and push relationship, and it's so subconscious that they're unaware of it. And because of that, this dance of lack of self-love or lack of love between the two people, it's not lack of love, it's just lack of awareness, right? And it creates a lot of instability, and that's why people are so petrified of what's going on. It's inner insecurity is where it's coming
Oh
from.
my God. You see, I can't believe, like something like this can actually have such a huge impact on a person's life. And, we don't realize,
Mm.
why a person is behaving in such a way. Why are they not feeling emotionally attached? No matter how much you do, you're trying to please them, but, they just want to detach themselves.
Yeah.
So you see, now it all makes sense. And
Yeah.
is this why some people develop harmful personality traits like manipulation or emotional detachment after a toxic childhood?
Well, the first thing I want to say about that is that the traits are not flaws. They are merely coping mechanisms. The child who learned to uh, keep themselves to themselves, the child who learned that love was unsafe, they will develop emotional detachment as a tool of survival. It was the only thing they could do. It was the only thing they knew how to do. A child who's constantly invalidated, they may learn to manipulate because direct expression doesn't feel safe or effective. So, what looks like dysfunction is often unhealed pain that's been very cleverly disguised for protection. And it's our ego at play because it wants to protect us. Because what we often label as harmful traits are rarely just basically survival strategies. They're not rooted in malice. They're basically coming from unmet needs. That person just wants their needs met. They don't know how to articulate that. They don't know how to tell the other person because they don't even know themselves. So it makes that
Right.
dynamic so difficult. And so when a child's emotional needs for love, for safety, for validation and connection are not met consistently by the people that they're supposed to be taken care of, the child quickly learns that direct emotional expression is going to lead to pain. It's going to lead to rejection. It's going to lead to punishment or abandonment. So what do? They adapt. It's the easiest thing they can do. It's not easy at all. It's the only thing they know how to do. So unconsciously, they develop these traits, and this is how they help themselves to live and survive in the environment, and they grow up with that, so they normalize these things which are not okay, which should never have been normalized, but it comes from a very young age. A child who learns that expressing sadness gets you mocked or ignored, they're going to develop emotional detachment to protect themselves because they don't want to feel that shame, they don't want to feel that guilt, right? A child who realizes that asking for love directly gets them punished, or so they resort to people pleasing. Like, I have to exert more energy, I have to do more things in order for people to look at me and actually like me. I want to be liked, but I don't know how to. So this is a very subtle manipulation. And I call it manipulation, but we have to really explain when we talk about manipulation, because there's another facet to manipulation which is very dangerous. That's not this kind of manipulation. This is basically hyper vigilance. Your wits are open about you. You're trying to detect the room to see, where do I need to walk on eggshells? How do I need to deliver my words? Am I saying the right things? What if I say this? What if they not trust me? What if they look at me in a different way? All of this, we're constantly scanning for approval, right? And we're trying to predict and control an outcome to avoid pain. So it's a very subconscious thing that we develop inside of ourselves. And it's not because they're bad people. It's because at that time, those behaviors were the only tools they had to even get a scrap of needs that they had to have them met in a way that they needed. So what looks like dysfunctional is often unhealed pain, but it is very cleverly disguised as protection. And these traits are basically form that we construct to survive, but the essence, the truth of you, the real you, the authentic you, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created you as, is all underneath. And it still longs for truth. It still is doing anything and everything it can for connection, for wholeness. It is our ego trying to keep us safe, but the truth of us is stunningly beautiful and soft on the inside. We just cannot access it while we carry all these painful traumas. And from a trauma lens, we're trying to punish those parts of ourselves. That's why we have this negative self-talk. We're trying to integrate them because these protective strategies were built kind of in a battlefield where you didn't know what you're
Right.
doing. So healing really requires us to gently invite those parts of ourselves out of survival mode into safety, because the coping mechanism we used at age 5 certainly doesn't suit us at age 25. When, say, for example, when something happened between our parents and we were, through reward and punishment, told to go into your room and sit there silently and contemplate on what you've done, that's isolation, because you're trying to get that child to think. They can't think that. They have no way. You have not allowed them to process. You've not helped them to process. So they've internalized that as, I'm not worthy of love. Now, as an adult, they're still using that same method by being passive aggressive or by giving their partner a silent treatment. Like, I'm just not going to talk to him for 3 days, and then that's going to make him come running back to me, and then we're gonna get him. Hopefully, he's going to start to. It's a cat and mouse chase, but really underneath it, there's so much pain. There's so much pain, and it's really important to understand that we have to have compassion to ourselves. We have to have boundaries in our relationships, and this is a big piece that I talk about, because when we talk about boundaries, there are hukuk in our relationships. So we have to be very careful on how we talk about boundaries, because out there in the self-help industry, it's like, if you don't like somebody, cut them off. Whether it's your mother, your father, that's not how it works. Islamically, we have to be very careful of how we interact. Even if in a very toxic environment, we can have some very healthy boundaries. We can still function in a very good way. We can still keep the connections. As Muslims, we must pay attention to that, where our obligations are to certain relationships. But it is important to understand where this is all coming from. So in order to love others properly, we have to heal ourselves first. We have to protect our peace. We have to honor our worth. We have to recognize when someone's wounds are bleeding into our lives, or our wounds are bleeding into somebody else's lives. True healing happens when we move from unconscious coping mechanisms to when we realize, I no longer need to manipulate to be loved. I no longer need to detach to be safe. I can get my needs met through being very authentic and not in a survival mode. And again, I will say the amount of marriages that come to an end due to lack of self-awareness is deeply tragic. And we must address that as a community, as a matter of urgency, really.
So I liked 2 points that you mentioned, and I think I can totally agree, especially when it comes to our parents, right? So sometimes, our parents, I mean, in certain roles, especially because of our culture and the backward mentality, parents react. It has an impact on these certain individuals, but then we cannot disrespect them, because it doesn't allow that. Islam says that no matter what it is, even if they're mushrik, right? Like, even non-Muslims, you have to respect them. And second point was about marriage. I think those couples or those individuals are very lucky who come from homes, but who find the right soul partner, like someone who truly understands them, understands their feelings and mends them, basically, and then suddenly they don't have that fear of, being disapproved by anybody or having to please they're right, and because they're being loved for who they are. So
Absolutely.
that is also something very special that happens in some people's lives. What about
before you ask me another question, I want to just add here that, when it comes to parental wounds that we carry and we silently endure, because in Islam, there is a high respect, rightly so, for parents. Like, it's the Lord, and then it's the Holy Prophet, and then it's the Ahlul Bayt, and then it's your parents. Like, it's such a high status that they have, and again, rightly so. When we talk about, and this is an important point, because when we get to a realization that I have things inside of me from my childhood that do not serve me well, and they are causing chaos in my current adult life, I need to address them. When we go through that kind of healing, at no point are we here to blame the parents. Are we here to, bash them in any way? This, actually, going through the healing process is repairing the relationship, so you can reconnect with them in the most authentic way. You don't have to go and confront your parents, because if they're in their 50s, 60s, 70s, they're highly unlikely to sit with you unless they're very kind of self-aware, which if they were, you wouldn't be going through what you are. It's very highly unlikely for you to sit with them and say, I went through this pain, and for them to receive that without justifying it, because they're going to have their defense mechanisms up. They're going to say, well, I did everything. I did this for you, that for you, that for you. And you're sitting here, you're trying to blame me again. It's going to turn into a really nasty argument. There's no need to do any of that. You can actually internally heal all of that and repair the relationship without them ever even knowing that you went through this. It's not disrespect. It's actually a form of high respect that you give to your parents when you go through healing.
I think like a proper, subtle, communication really helps.
Yes.
Just talk it out, and I think after years, it makes a lot of difference because things have changed, and you've as well, and times have passed as well. So the conversation is different then, right?
Yeah.
So probably yes, you're actually right about that. What
Mm.
about positive childhood? So how can positive childhood access buffer or reduce the impact of toxic ones on personality development?
Oh, it's huge. It's just absolutely, it changes everything. Even from one stable, emotionally attuned relationship in a childhood can powerfully protect against all these emotional wounds that we're talking about right now. In psychology, there's something called the buffering effect, actually, and the idea is that one single source of consistent love, consistent safety, consistent acceptance can significantly reduce the long-term harms and causes of other toxic experiences that we're discussing right now. Because look, children's nervous system is not built to thrive in isolation or in chaos, which is what happens when we're not emotionally present, when we're not emotionally intelligent. And it's built to regulate itself through co-regulation, meaning that presence of an emotionally safe caregiver, an adult who is calm, collated, and is allowing you, supporting you to process your emotions, actually teaches the child's body how to manage their own fear, how to process their sadness, their anger, their joy, all of these things, right? So when a child is seen, when a child is heard, when a child is feeling validated, even by one person, whether it's a parent, grandparent, a teacher, another adult in their life, some kind of a coach, it becomes an imprint because it's like a
Right.
referencing point that, like, at a subconscious level, deep inside of them, it plants a seed that love does exist. Even if there's so much chaos, there
Okay.
love does exist. There is somebody out there who's taught me that safety actually exists. That
Right.
me as an individual, I'm worthy of being loved. So that imprint can serve as an anchor for the rest of their lives. Even if
Right.
they later face hardships, even if they face rejection or loss or whatever, they'll be able to go through it much more resilience. There'll be a lot more resilience inside of them if they had even one person. And I pray, and it's so tragic and it's so heartbreaking that most children don't even have this one person in their lives who they can anchor back to. That is the reality of the situation. When we're unaware, we cause so much chaos. So light overrides darkness, not through aggression, but through our presence, through our connection. In the same way, one experience of being loved can and loved purely can really slowly unravel years of feeling unworthiness that we feel, unseen that we feel on the inside. Love doesn't shout down the pain, it dissolves it by showing you a different reality, different possibility, being loved in a different way. So it's really important. When a child has one experience of being loved correctly, it teaches them the pain that they experience isn't the whole story. That's not all of them. It gives them hope. It gives them resilience. It gives them a blueprint on how to seek what they are seeking and how to even offer that, how to be safe for other people, right? Because it's rooted in connection and it's so important. I cannot emphasize enough. And for parents,
Yeah.
it's important to know that children are not perfect, nor are you, by the way. And so when we're navigating difficulties and children get really irritating and we don't know how to navigate that, the first thing to do is remain calm yourself, because when you match their chaos, you're basically telling them, I have no safety to give you. You're feeling unsafe right now, but I have no safety to give you either. So we're going to be chaotic together. And it just creates this big ripple effect of nothing but just more wounds, right? Even small
Right.
act of consistent care can really plant the amazing and very necessary seeds that can grow into a lot of inner strength. Healing doesn't require perfect past. Even if your children are older right now, it just requires a bit of evidence, even if it's tiny, that love and
Yeah.
safety and wholeness are absolutely possible. And bi'idhnillah, we can make start shifting the things in our lives so that our children can feel safe and we can feel safe around them too, inshallah.
Right.
And
Now,
one last point I'd like to say
yes,
is that, you know, we our soul is here to evolve, we're here to grow, we're here to like be better people, adopt as many of attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our lives as possible. That's the core of our essence, that's our spirit, right? But as we're
absolutely.
navigating through life and as these things are happening, we get stunted. Our growth gets stunted at some point. Like we learn so much and then we get stuck. We feel
Right.
empty, or we keep going through motions of life. We have an hour long to-do list every day. Everything needed to be done yesterday. It's chaos. And in this overwhelm, we forget how to grow. When our children come into the world, especially the so-called black sheep child, the one that does everything opposite to you that you tell them to do, that child
Yes.
is the one that's here to grow you the most. That child is the great opportunity by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you stunted your growth. Now that child is going to pull you out in the most shaking way possible to allow you to see that there is more to you than where you stopped. So if you can
Very
shift
true.
and frame the way you look at a child, it might help you to see what they're here to teach you, because they are.
Absolutely. It's such a beautiful point that you mentioned. That's why they say, yeah, that mothers become more stronger, like, more powerful once they become mothers, basically. So, very true. That's agreeable. What about those people, who have these negative traits in them, okay? They're trying to heal, they want to improve, but they can't. So, can people fully overcome the negative personality patterns uh, in their lives, which were formed back during their childhood? Is it possible? Yes or no? And if so, how?
Absolutely, it's possible. If you're alive and if you're breathing and you have recognition is the first stage of healing. Absolutely, 1000%. That's what I do. It's something that is very, very important to recognize. But overcoming doesn't mean erasing the past. It's basically reconstructing and transforming your relationship with it. The way you internalized it, the meaning you added to it now needs to be changed, because at age 5 it made sense, but at age 55 it certainly doesn't, right? So healing
Yeah.
isn't about pretending that the pain never happened. It's about rewriting that meaning that you added, that meaning that you assigned to your story, and now you live by it like it's the only truth and there's no other truth but that truth is not the truth, right? So it's about moving from why did this happen to me to what was it here to teach me? How can I get lifelong transferable skills from this so that I can move forward in a powerful way? Most of the patterns we formed in our childhood, like people pleasing, like emotional shutdown, like independence, like distrust, all of these things, they were brilliant survival mechanisms at the time. But what kept us alive then is keeping us small now. It's doing the opposite thing right now for us. True healing invites us to lay down the armor that we carry because we think we need to protect ourselves from this threat that doesn't exist anymore. And we need to step into our higher self, our higher version that we are meant to becoming now as we're growing older. This is the work that I do. This is what I guide people towards as we embark on a journey. We don't try to kill off the wounded parts. We integrate them. We listen to the cries with compassion. We honor that survival skill, that what it gave us, because it gave us a lot in our lives. And then we lovingly lead them into a new identity, right? A new way of thinking, a new way of being, a whole new reframing of life in its entirety. One that is not built out of fear, but it's built on truth, it's built on connection, and it's built on divine trust. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with us at all times, right? So this is the kind of identity shifting that needs to go through the process of consciously letting go of personality uh, shaped by pain, shaped by wounds and trauma, and stepping into a soul, because we're vibrating at a certain frequency. And if we carry those pains inside of ourselves, we attract more negativity, more harm, more difficulties. Even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, indeed Allah does not change the condition of a people who do not change the conditions of themselves. So it reminds us that change is not just waiting for something and hoping that by magic something is going to happen one day and then everything's going to fall into place. No, we have to genuinely put pure focused energy and conscious effort into changing the situation, and it requires deep surrender to what happened and how we see it. And the beautiful truth is that it is so liberating. It's a painful process to go through, by the way, but it is so liberating to know that you are not your wounds, you are not your parents' behavior, you are not the mistakes that you made, and you're not the coping mechanisms that you came up with to survive. You are a spirit. You are a soul in motion. Your body is only housing the true you, right? And we are designed to rise. We are designed to evolve, designed to return to our fitra, which is the original pure state
Right.
that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created, right? Our soul are dignified, but trials are immensely important. They are there to shape us and to help us grow. And healing is not just possible, it's literally your birthright. You should. I don't see it as a luxury. I think it's everyone should go through healing process because we all carry something or other to some degree. It's just that we have different coping mechanisms and we can function because life is still happening. We have children, we have homes, we cook and clean, we go to work, we dress nice. And so we think, I don't really need help. But in the quiet of the night, we're overthinking. When we're lying on the pillow and it's eating away at us, when we're thinking, she looked at me this way. Why did she look at me this way? Do you think she was trying to say this to me? Was this happening? Did they really, what did she mean by that? Like how, all of this is trauma response. This is your nervous system trying to protect yourself. Where does it come from? It comes from deep wounds that have not yet been dealt with. And it's extremely important for us to address that so that we can stop being not ourselves, like pretending to be okay, but when we're not internally okay.
Yeah, very beautifully said. And I feel like, those souls who are actually broken, those souls who are went through a process of healing, are able to understand the broken souls much more better because they didn't get those luxuries probably in their lives, that comfort and that love. And so they're willing to give more to those who actually really need it at times.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's so true.
now for the yeah, I feel like broken hearts, like they tend to heal others better because you understand like what this person is
Yeah,
actually going through
it's
because
a
you've
level of
been through it,
empathy that you wouldn't get from
right?
somebody who has hidden away
Yeah,
from the truth of themselves for a long time because they don't have that depth, they don't have the know-how of how to navigate that. Whereas somebody who's been through it and come out the other
right,
end of it, they can see the liberation that you get from healing work for sure.
exactly, right, right. Okay, for the final part, I want to know what role does therapy or self-awareness play in healing from the effects of toxic childhood relationships?
Oh, it's such a powerful question. And obviously, I'm going to more refer to coaching because that's what I do, but I have been through therapy myself as well. So I can kind of talk about that as well. But coaching and deep spiritual work are basically hand in hand. And I don't believe that they're luxuries. Honestly, I don't think that this is something that I'll do one day. I'll do when I. No, they are your lifelines. And I talk out of experience from my own personal life, but I also talk out of experience of hundreds of people that I've worked with. To me, this work is sacred. To me, it's one of the best forms of ibadah that you will ever do. Because without them, most people are not really living. They're not even themselves. They're merely repeating cycles that they learn, cycles of pain, for themselves and for the people around them. And it causes so much unnecessary pain that they never need to stay stuck. They're stuck on the so-called overly used word of autopilot, because all they're doing is they're replaying the old emotions, the old programs, that was written back in childhood, believing that these patterns are their personality, when in fact they are
Right.
just their wounded selves speaking. They have nothing to do with their personality. They were handed to them because it was the only way to survive in a very difficult set of circumstances. They are deeply disconnected from themselves. And by extension, when we're deeply disconnected from ourselves, who else are we deeply disconnected from? From Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So our connection,
Allah
our
subhanahu wa ta'ala.
authenticity cannot reach We cannot, there is what Imam Hussein al-Islam said about man arafa nafsahu wa man arafa rabbahu, if I'm getting that correctly, that it is through your own self, it is through your own self-actualization, it is through your own knowledge that you're going to be able to get in touch with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these wounds are basically covering the real self. Without self-awareness, we remain trapped inside this very experience that hurt us. We don't know how to look beyond that. We react instead of responding. We sabotage love before it can even heal us, before it can even reach to us, because we're petrified of it. We project our pain onto others and we call it reality. When somebody says something to us, we are so deeply triggered. Our nervous system kicks off straight away because it's trying to protect ourselves. But it's coming from the wounded self. It's not coming from the true you. It's not coming from who you actually are. But you think it's your reality. It's actually not at all. Self-awareness is the first crack of light, if you like, that enters into a very dark room of your unconsciousness. It allows you to pause. It allows you to pause from that automatic reaction that just comes naturally. And it helps you to zoom out and say, wait, let me think. We're not able to do this when we're not healed. It says, wait, maybe not the whole world is trying to hurt me. Maybe not everyone's against me. Maybe it's my own unhealed pain that's creating this lens which I'm seeing the world through. That takes a lot of courage, because you're being true to yourself in a way that you've never been true to yourself. It's very hard to do that if you haven't had self-actualization, because it's so much easier to say, Sakeena, you hurt me. That's why I'm speaking to you this way. Sakeena, if you didn't raise your voice in this way, and if you didn't say that word in that way, you wouldn't be seeing me reacting in this way. So it's your fault that I'm reacting this way. I have no self analysis in all of this, because I don't have the capability, because I was never taught it, and I'm not willing to go back there, right? It's so much easier for me to project on you rather than reflect on myself. It's much harder to reflect, right? But in my work, what I believe deeply is that self-awareness alone is not enough. And this is not something you hear from self-help industry, because many people are very aware, but the pain is still there. It still creates this powerlessness. It doesn't change things, right? What we actually need is self-connection. What we actually need is return to our own heart. We're operating here 99.9% of the times. We rarely drop down to here. This is where our truth is. This is who we actually are. This is our spirit. This is what Allah created us. This is what He blew into us. This is what makes us us. But we're disconnected. We're up here because this is the only survival tool that we had, and we're still using it for the things that we don't need to use it. Healing is coming home to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through yourself. It's a reconnection to your soul that existed before your wounds came into play, before your programming was handed down to you, before the world told you that you just need to survive. In order to get connection, you have to go through pain. And this is where this kind of work, coaching, my kind of work, is extremely, extremely vital, and also very different than most coaching methods that I've seen out there. Because if any coaching, if any therapy out there is trying to heal you, but it does not connect you back to your true essence, to your spirit, it is not healing. It is further disconnecting you from yourself. You have to have, and you have to incorporate Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? In Islam, there is a profound concept called muhasaba al-nafs, the accounting of the soul. It teaches us not just to monitor our behavior, but to examine our intentions. Islam is beautifully based on our intent. But how do we know our intent when we're not even able to analyze ourselves? When we don't even know how to look within? Our inner states, our energy, our relationships with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and with other people that we are obligated to have relationships with, right? So it's not just a tick in the box, right or wrong kind of an exercise. It's about asking, is my inner world aligned with the truth, with mercy, with who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created me to be? Healing is not about feeling better. If anything, you have to feel worse before you feel better, because you're revisiting some of the things that you've buried away for such a long time that you don't want to revisit again. It's about becoming whole again. right? It's about recognizing that you were never broken to begin with. You're only disconnected from your own light. You're only disconnected from your true essence. That's all it is. So coaching, when it's trauma informed, when it's soul rooted, it's a very, very sacred journey of remembrance. I can call healing remembrance, because all you're doing is finding a pathway to remember back to who you were to begin with, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent you here on this planet Earth with. It brings you back to your own self, brings you back home. It rewires your nervous system, so you no longer feel like life, you're only seeing life through this lens of pain, but you want to see life through the lens of possibility and what it's here to give you. It helps you to move forward from survival to creation. You're very creative as a being, all of us are, right? But we feel stuck. It helps you to move from being a victim of they did this, she did this, he said that, they all, all of this, to self-actualization, to understanding yourself, so that it gives you empowerment. It takes you from emotional chaos to very grounded trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which leads you to surrender, which is one of the most beautiful things we can do when it comes to practicing our deen and healing. So the role of healing, basically spaces like these, like where we are talking about healing, it offers what was missing. What was missing was consistency in our childhood. What was missing was safety in our childhood. What was missing was reflection, where somebody helped us to reflect and process what was going on. What was missing was accountability. What was missing was responsibility. What was missing was deep compassion, right? Tools that don't just touch your mind, but they awaken your soul. That's how we're meant to heal. It's spirituality at its best in my opinion, right? Because it's not just about fixing yourself. It's about peeling away layers and layers and layers of things that were never the truth of you to begin with. Once that happens, your whole life begins to change from the inside out. You're no longer the same person that you used to be. You start to attract better relationships. You start to parent differently. You start to see your parents differently. You connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from a place of utter love, not just fear, right? You move through the world with dignity, with your head held up high, with self-respect, with self-actualization, right? And nobody can ever steal that from you ever again. Healing is not a dream. It's a decision. It's one that only you can make. Nobody else can do it on your behalf. And when you say yes to healing, you are saying yes to rewriting the story that you hold so dear to yourself that doesn't serve you. It's your soul changing to be who it was supposed to be, bi'idhnillah, for your future. Inshallah.
Inshallah. Very beautiful and very inspiring, of course. And subhanallah, the way you connected it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to basically know our true essence. It's so important. I'm just reading what Imam Ali alayhi salam also, has said a couple of times. I mean, it really resonates to us. Like he says that, you think that you're a very, useless creature, a tiny creature, futile creature, but within you lies the entire. And if you are looking for a remedy, for a cure, the cure is actually within you, right? So as you said, that healing nature, the healing fitra, it, is there within us. It exists within us. God has created us with it, So yeah, it's
Absolutely.
just a journey that one.
Absolutely. And this quote that you've mentioned is one that changed my life completely. Actually, this quote is the reason that I healed. Because before I came across this quote, I was in a turmoil. My life was an utter mess. I couldn't make sense of anything. I had no knowledge of who I am and what I'm here to serve and what my life is about. Nothing at all. So it was this quote that is so deeply powerful. When Imam Ali Islam says, your sickness is from you, but you do not perceive it. And your remedy is within you, but you do not sense it. You presume you are a small entity, but within you is enfolded the entire universe. Therefore, you have no need to look beyond yourself. What you seek is within you, if only you reflect, right? So it's kind of giving you the entire platform on what to do. And because this quote literally changed my life, my signature course called The Universe Within You is based on this quote, and it's a year-long program. So I take a whole year dissecting this quote and applying it to people's lives, applying it to my own life. And I've transformed like so many people's lives through this quote because it's that powerful and it can literally change everything about your existence. We owe that to ourselves.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sister Uzma, for honestly joining me today and, for sharing such wonderful, insightful points, from your expertise, from a lot of information that you've shared with us on program. I hope that a lot of people will benefit from today's program. So I really want to thank you, honestly. Thank you.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you. It's my pleasure and honor to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you to all our viewers for tuning on today's program. And I think Sister Uzma has shared some very valuable key points on today's program. And, this episode was honestly very uplifting and inspiring because there are lots of us, who have gone through traumatic experiences back from our childhoods, from traumatic incidents, and the way sometimes people act with you, the way their behavior is towards you, really makes you wonder and question, like, why are they reacting in such a way. So now you've got your answers. So it's always good to help heal such kind of people, to talk to them, communicate with them, talk it through. And of course, if you need any sort of therapy or help, then we've got experts and professionals, who can really help and guide you. So this was a lovely conversation with all of you, and inshallah, we'll be seeing you around. This is your host, Sakeena Habib, signing off. Please make sure to like today's program and keep sharing it with your family and friends as much as possible. Allahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.